There are moments in life that feel like they're whispering to you, almost as if reality itself pauses for just a breath and says, "Pay attention." Maybe you've had one of those days. You're sitting quietly, thinking about an old friend you haven't spoken to in years. And right then, your phone lights up with a message from them. Or you keep noticing the same number everywhere on license plates. Receipts. The clock until it feels like the universe is trying to send you a secret code. Perhaps you stumble into the perfect opportunity at the exact moment you needed it most. Even though your logical mind says, "There's no way this should be happening right now." We call these moments synchronicity. The psychologist Carl Jung was the first to give it a name. He described synchronicity as a meaningful connection without direct cause. Two events, seemingly unrelated, lining up in a way so precise, it feels as if there's an invisible hand at work. And when we experience it, we can't help but wonder, is this luck, fate, divine timing? But what if I told you, synchronicity was never random at all? What if it wasn't the universe testing you, or blessing you, or dangling a miracle in front of you? What if every single synchronicity you've ever experienced was simply a reflection, a mirror, showing you the energy, the thoughts, and the frequency you are radiating in this very moment? You see, life doesn't just happen to you, it happens through you. The world you see outside is constantly shaped by what's happening inside. Most people live as if reality is a rigid thing, built from causes and effects they can't control. But modern science and ancient wisdom both tell us that's not the whole story. Your mind and heart are not passive observers. They are participants in the unfolding of reality. Think of it this way: your consciousness is like a radio transmitter. Whatever signal you broadcast, whether it's fear, gratitude, lack, or love, that signal interacts with the field of energy that surrounds us all. The universe doesn't judge it, it simply echoes it back. When your internal state is scattered and chaotic, the world reflects that back to you in random, confusing ways. But when you begin to align your thoughts, emotions, and actions, when you come into harmony within yourself, something incredible happens. The reflections outside you become clear. Events line up with breathtaking precision. You start to see repeating numbers, unexpected connections, and doors opening at just the right time. Not because someone out there decided to favor you, but because you finally tuned your inner signal to match the reality you desire. Synchronicity is like the first light of dawn on the horizon. It's not the sun itself. It's the sign that the sun is about to rise. The mistake many people make is treating these signs as the final destination. They cling to them, worship them, or fear missing them, as if the signs themselves hold the power. But the truth is, the power has always been within you. The signs are simply a language, a way for your deeper self to whisper, "You're on the right path. Keep going." They are breadcrumbs leading you home, not the home itself. When you see synchronicity, don't just stop and marvel at it. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what within me is being reflected right now? What state of being is this sign pointing me toward? That simple shift from seeing synchronicity as a message from the outside to recognizing it as a mirror of the inside will transform the way you live. Carl Jung once said that meaningful coincidences are bridges between the mind and the world. Modern quantum physics gives us an even deeper understanding of that bridge. Experiments show that particles behave differently simply because they are observed. This is called the observer effect, and it tells us something extraordinary. The very act of paying attention changes reality. Now think about what happens when you notice a synchronicity. In that moment of awareness, you are not just witnessing something strange, you are participating in the collapse of possibility into form. The sign doesn't predict your future. It reflects the future you are choosing to embody right now. Imagine a lake at sunrise. When the water is still, the surface perfectly mirrors the sky. But when the water is stormy and rough, The reflection is distorted, broken. Your inner world works the same way. When you are restless, anxious, or disconnected, the reflection you see in life will be fragmented. But when you cultivate stillness, when you bring your mind, heart, and body into harmony, the outer world naturally becomes clearer. Opportunities appear, relationships align, life begins to flow effortlessly, like a river no longer fighting to run uphill. Synchronicity is the first ripple on that still water, a gentle sign saying, yes, you are aligned. Yes, keep trusting. So the next time you notice a powerful coincidence, don't rush past it, and don't cling to it either. Instead, meet it with a quiet knowing. Let it remind you that you are not separate from the universe. You are woven into its fabric, a living thread of consciousness. And when you change the vibration of the thread, the entire tapestry rearranges itself. Synchronicity was never random. It was never luck or chance. It was you, your signal, your frequency, your inner truth reflected back through the dance of life. The universe isn't testing you, it's mirroring you. And the moment you realize that, you stop chasing signs and start becoming the sign. From that place, life doesn't just surprise you with magic now and then. It becomes magic, a continuous, graceful unfolding of the reality you've chosen to embody. 1. Synchronicity is the echo of your inner state. There's a quiet truth that often goes unnoticed in the noise of our daily lives. The world you see around you is not separate from you. It's a reflection of you. Every moment, every encounter, every so-called coincidence is like a soft echo returning from the landscape of your own inner being. The human brain, though miraculous, is not just a passive witness to reality. It doesn't merely record what's happening out there. It filters, edits, and arranges what you perceive based on the state of your inner world. In other words, reality is not simply shown to you, it is shaped through you. When fear lives at the core of your being, it colors everything you see. It's like wearing dark, cracked glasses. Even the brightest day will seem cloudy through that lens. You'll find yourself noticing threats where there are none, misinterpreting a kind word as judgment, turning small uncertainties into looming catastrophes. The outer world becomes a stage where your inner fears act out their stories again and again. I remember a time in my life when I lived in this way, constantly anxious, expecting the worst, and as you might guess, that's exactly what my outer life reflected. Misunderstandings with loved ones seemed to come out of nowhere. Opportunities slipped through my fingers no matter how hard I chased them. Even the smallest tasks felt heavy and complicated, as if life itself were pushing against me. Back then, I couldn't see that it wasn't life doing this to me. It was me, projecting my own unrest into every corner of my reality. But just as fear distorts, gratitude clarifies. When you begin to shift your focus even slightly toward what you appreciate, the lens through which you view the world begins to clear. You start to notice small blessings you once overlooked: the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the way someone smiles at you in passing, the quiet moments of safety you might have taken for granted. This change might seem small at first, almost insignificant. But here's the beautiful part. Life responds immediately, though gently, to the frequency you emit. When your heart carries gratitude, your outer world begins to harmonize with it. Conversations become kinder. Unexpected opportunities appear, almost as if they were waiting just outside your field of vision all along. Even challenges seem to soften, offering lessons instead of punishment. This is where synchronicity comes in. Synchronicities are not random miracles sprinkled on a chaotic universe. They are precise reflections of the vibration you are radiating at this very moment. They are like the echo of your own voice in a canyon, except instead of sound, it's the energy of your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, returning to you through the events and people in your life. Think about it this way. If you stand in a valley and shout words of anger, the echo that comes back will not be sweet or comforting. It will be anger, amplified. But if you stand in the same place and whisper words of love, what returns will feel entirely different, soft, warm, and nurturing. Life works the same way. The universe is neutral. It simply reflects back to you whatever you project into it. This is why two people can live under the same roof, work in the same office, even share the same circumstances, and yet experience completely different realities. One lives in a state of resentment and scarcity, and the world responds with resistance and lack. The other carries an inner sense of wholeness, and somehow, even in the same environment, life seems to flow in their favor. It isn't magic, it's resonance. I used to believe that synchronicities were gifts randomly bestowed upon me by a mysterious outside force. I would cling to them, hoping for more, afraid they might disappear. But over time, I came to understand something deeper. Synchronicities are messages from my own inner landscape. They are like mile markers on a journey, showing me where I am in my alignment with life. When I was trapped in fear, the signs I saw were confusing, fragmented, sometimes even unsettling. But as I began to heal and cultivate gratitude, the signs shifted. They became clear, supportive, even playful, like winks from the universe saying, "Yes, keep going. You are on the right track." This realization was both humbling and empowering. It meant that I wasn't at the mercy of some mysterious external fate. It meant that I held the power to shift my experience by tending to the garden of my inner world. Synchronicity, at its core, is a mirror. It shows you your own vibration in a form you can see and touch. When you experience repeating numbers, meaningful coincidences, or perfectly timed encounters, pause for a moment. Don't rush past them or dismiss them as luck. Instead, turn inward and ask, what within me is being reflected right now? This question is not about blame or self-criticism. It's about awareness. Because when you can see the connection between your inner state and your outer experience, you are no longer powerless. You begin to understand that while you cannot control every event in life, you can influence the tone of your experience by shifting your vibration. Here's what I've learned through years of stumbling and learning. You don't have to fix the whole world. You don't have to chase every sign or interpret every coincidence like a puzzle to be solved. All you need to do is return, again and again, to the state of being you wish to see reflected. If you long for peace, cultivate peace within yourself, even in the smallest ways. If you long for love, and speak to yourself with tenderness. Treat others with kindness, and let that energy ripple outward. If you long for abundance, start by recognizing the ways in which you are already supported, no matter how humble they may seem. As your inner state shifts, life will shift alongside it. Synchronicities will arise naturally, not as rare miracles, but as the natural rhythm of a life lived in harmony. They will remind you gently, consistently, that you are not separate from this universe. You are woven into it, a living thread of consciousness. And the world you see is always showing you who you are inside. When you truly understand this, synchronicity stops being a mystery to solve and becomes a conversation, a tender, ongoing dialogue between you and the greater whole. Every sign, every echo, every perfectly timed moment is simply life whispering back to you. I hear you, I feel you, and I am you, too. Synchronicity is not the destination, but the invitation. There was a time in my life when I chased signs with a kind of desperate hope. Every repeating number, every unexpected meeting, every perfectly timed song on the radio felt like a secret message meant only for me. And I clung to these moments as if they were proof that I was finally on the right path, that maybe, just maybe, Life hadn't forgotten me. If you've ever done the same, I understand. When we've spent years feeling lost or unseen, the appearance of synchronicity can feel like a lifeline. It feels like a wink from the universe saying, "You are special. You are chosen." It's comforting, intoxicating even, to believe that the signs themselves are the reward. But here's what I've come to realize through experience, sometimes painful, sometimes humbling: synchronicity is never the end point. It is not the treasure you are meant to keep in your hands. It is the invitation, the whisper, the gentle knock at the door asking you to step into a new reality that has not yet fully formed. Think of a shadow. A shadow always comes before the object itself. You might see the shadow stretching across the ground and recognize its shape, but you know it isn't the thing itself. It's just the first glimpse, a hint that something real is about to emerge. Synchronicity works in exactly this way. When a sign appears, when that perfectly timed event happens, or a stranger says exactly the words you needed to hear, it is not the final manifestation of your desire. It is the shadow of that manifestation. It's the signal that the energy of what you've been calling in is beginning to take form. But here's where many of us get stuck. We see the shadow, and we cling to it as if it's the whole story. We begin to worship the signs themselves. We look at every coincidence like it's a test, or a code we must decipher to earn the life we want. And in doing so, we miss the real opportunity. When you stare only at the shadow, you miss the object casting it. When you focus too much on the sign, you lose sight of what it's pointing toward. I remember a season in my life when synchronicities were happening almost every day. I was seeing repeating numbers everywhere, on clocks, on receipts, even on random street signs. I was meeting people in the most unlikely places, people who seemed to carry answers to questions I hadn't even voiced out loud. It felt magical, and I let myself believe that the magic itself was the goal. But as the months went by, I realized something strange. Even with all these signs, my actual life wasn't changing very much. The opportunities didn't seem to fully take shape. The relationships didn't deepen the way I hoped they would. It was as if I was standing at the threshold of a beautiful new world, but never actually stepping through the doorway. That's when it hit me. The signs weren't there to comfort me forever. They were there to invite me to act, to embody, to move. I had been waiting for the universe to do everything for me, as if the appearance of synchronicity alone was enough. But synchronicity isn't about being chosen, it's about being called, and calls require a response. Imagine this. You're standing on a quiet road, and you see a lantern glowing in the distance. The lantern doesn't exist to give you light where you are standing now. It exists to show you where to go. If you stand still, staring at the glow, you will stay in darkness. Only when you begin to walk toward it does the light expand, revealing more of the path ahead. Synchronicity is like that lantern. It shows you the direction of your alignment, the path that is ready to unfold. But it cannot walk the road for you. You must take the steps yourself. This understanding changes the way you engage with synchronicity. Instead of clutching at signs like precious artifacts, you begin to see them as gentle guidance. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen? What does it mean?" you start asking, "What is life inviting me to embody in this moment?" The sign itself is not the point. The point is the transformation that happens when you align your inner state with the energy that the sign is reflecting back to you. For example, if you keep encountering synchronicities around love, maybe you see couples everywhere, hear songs about connection, or keep noticing repeating numbers. When you think of someone you care about, don't stop at the surface and say, this must mean love is coming to me." Go deeper. Ask yourself, what within me is ready to give and receive love more fully? What part of me is being invited to open? The real work is not outside of you. It's never about chasing the sign. It's about becoming the version of yourself who naturally lives in the reality that sign is pointing toward. Here's another way to think about it. Synchronicities are like mile markers on a long journey. They let you know you're moving in the right direction. But they are not the destination themselves. If you were driving across the country and stopped at every mile marker, you'd never reach your destination. You'd be stuck on the side of the road, endlessly celebrating the signs instead of living the journey they were meant to guide you through. And yet, how often do we do this in our lives? We get so caught up in collecting synchronicities that we forget to actually live the experience they're leading us toward. We turn our spiritual growth into a scavenger hunt, missing the deep, quiet transformation that's asking to happen within us. The deeper truth is this: synchronicity is a conversation between you and the universe. It says, "We're aligned, you're ready, the path is opening." But like any conversation, it requires a response. Your role is not to sit back and analyze every word. Your role is to listen, to trust, and then to act from the place the sign has revealed within you. When you do this, the shadow turns into substance. The faint outline of what's possible becomes the vivid reality you can touch and live in. And the signs themselves, they begin to fade. Not because you've lost them, but because you no longer need them. You have stepped fully into the life they were always pointing toward. So, the next time synchronicity appears, pause, smile. Let yourself feel the wonder of it, the beauty of being connected to something so much larger than yourself. But don't stop there. Ask yourself, what is this moment inviting me to become? What is the reality waiting just beyond this sign? Because in the end, synchronicity is not the destination. It's the invitation. It's the lantern glowing in the distance, asking you to take that first brave step toward the life that has been waiting for you all along. 3. The quiet before the leap. There are times on this journey when life feels alive with synchronicity. Everywhere you turn, there are signs, numbers, repeating like clockwork, conversations that seem too perfectly timed to be accidental, doors swinging open, as if the universe is guiding your every step. It feels magical, almost as though you're walking in step with something greater than yourself. And then, it stops. The numbers disappear. The chance encounters fade. The music goes silent. At first, this silence can feel terrifying. Your mind scrambles to make sense of it. Did I do something wrong? Have I fallen out of alignment? Was it all just my imagination? That sudden absence can feel like abandonment, as though the very force that once guided you has now turned its back. But here's the truth, a truth I had to learn through my own seasons of stillness. The silence is not punishment. It's not rejection. It is preparation. Think of your breath for a moment. You inhale. There's a pause. And only then do you exhale. We often focus on the inhale and the exhale, the obvious movements, but the pause between them is just as essential. It's the still point where balance is restored, where your body prepares for the next breath. Life works in exactly the same way. The signs you've been seeing, those repeating numbers, those uncanny synchronicities, are like the inhale, drawing in energy, pulling your awareness into alignment. The silence that follows is the pause before the exhale, the moment when everything is recalibrating, gathering strength, preparing to release into a new reality. In my own life, I've gone through these quiet phases more than once, and I'll admit, they were never easy. The first time it happened, I thought I had somehow lost my connection, that the magic was gone forever. I searched for signs, begged for reassurance, even tried to force synchronicities to happen, as if my desperation could make the universe speak louder. It didn't work. The more I clung, the quieter everything seemed to become. Only when I finally surrendered did I begin to understand, silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means everything is happening. But beneath the surface, it's like a seed planted in the soil. You don't see its growth day by day, but deep underground, roots are spreading. Life is stirring. and something beautiful is preparing to break through. The pause is not empty. It's full of unseen movement, full of potential, full of the future that hasn't yet been revealed. There's a kind of grace in this hidden work, though it takes time to appreciate it. When we are in the middle of the quiet, it can feel like being lost in a dense fog. There's no clear path forward, no obvious sign of progress. But looking back, we often realize that those were the moments when our inner foundation was being rebuilt. Just as a house must be silent while its frame is reinforced, your life sometimes needs stillness to integrate what's been learned, to prepare for what's next. This is the sacred purpose of the pause integration. Without it, change would be too unstable to hold. I've come to see these silent periods as a form of trust training. When synchronicities are everywhere, it's easy to believe you're guided because you can see the evidence. But when the evidence disappears, you're invited to trust without proof, to stand firmly in your knowing, even when there is nothing external to reassure you. It's in this space that your signal, your personal vibration grows strongest, because it's no longer being propped up by outer signs. It's being generated purely from within you. It's a test, yes, but not in the punishing sense. It's a refinement, a strengthening of your connection to yourself and to the field of infinite possibilities. I once heard someone compare this phase to the moment before a wave crashes on the shore. From a distance, the ocean might look calm, even still, but beneath the surface, energy is building, gathering, coiling upon itself. Then, suddenly, the wave crests and rushes forward with unstoppable force. The silence before your breakthrough is like that hidden swell. You may not see the movement, but it's there. The energy of your new reality is building, preparing to surge into form, and when it does, the shift will seem instant, even though it was quietly forming all along. So what can you do in this quiet phase? The answer is deceptively simple. Be still. Breathe. Listen. Instead of frantically searching for signs, turn your attention inward. Nurture yourself. Rest your nervous system. Release the urge to fix or control. This is the time to care for your inner soil so that the seeds you've planted can grow. It's like standing in a winter landscape. The trees may look bare, the ground frozen, but beneath the surface, life is preparing for spring. The silence of winter is not death, it's gestation. And just like nature, your life has seasons. Trust them, honor them. The pause before the leap is a sacred space. It's where you gather strength for the transformation ahead. If you can sit in that stillness without rushing, without demanding, you'll begin to feel something subtle, a deep knowing rising from within you. It's the quiet realization that you were never abandoned. You were being held, protected, prepared. When the signs return, they won't just be hints or whispers. They will be the exhale, the full release of a reality that is ready to be lived. And you will meet it with steadiness, because you allowed yourself to grow roots in the silence. So if you are in that quiet phase right now, wondering why everything has gone still, take heart. This is not the end of your journey. It is the breath before the song, the stillness before the dance, the sacred pause before the leap. Trust it. Let it shape you. And when the time comes, you will rise not because the signs pulled you forward, but because you have become the very force that carries you into the next chapter of your life. 4. Becoming the signal. There comes a point on the spiritual journey when you realize something profound. The purpose of the signs you've been following was never to keep you looking outward. They were there to lead you back inward, to a place where you no longer need them. For much of my life, I was a seeker. I searched for meaning in every coincidence, every perfectly timed encounter, every repeating number, glowing on a clock. I thought synchronicity was the language of the universe speaking to me, guiding me step by step. And in a way, it was. But what I didn't see then was that these signs were like training wheels. They were never meant to carry me forever. Neville Goddard once said, "Live as though you are already the person you wish to become, and the result will appear automatically." It took me years to truly understand this. At first, those words felt impossible. How could I live as if I were already whole when I felt so broken inside? How could I embody abundance when my outer world was filled with lack? But slowly, through trial and error, through pain and grace, I began to see what Neville meant. The shift doesn't begin in the outer world. It begins with you. When you are constantly searching for signs, it's like standing on the edge of a river, waiting for the current to prove it exists. You keep staring at the water, hoping for ripples, longing for confirmation. But when you step into the river, when you merge with it, there is no need for proof anymore. You are carried by the flow itself. Becoming the signal works the same way. As long as you are looking outside yourself for validation, you will always feel like you're waiting for the right moment, waiting for the universe to send a message, waiting for life to tell you who you are. But when you embody the frequency you desire, when you live it, breathe it, radiate it, the waiting ends. You are no longer the observer searching for synchronicity. You are the synchronicity. Think about how a radio works. A receiver can only pick up the frequency it's tuned to. If you're tuned to static, you'll hear noise. If you're tuned to a clear signal, you'll hear music. Most people live as receivers, scanning endlessly for the right station, twisting the dial, frustrated by the interference. But what if, instead of being the receiver, you became the broadcaster? What if you sent out a signal so clear and strong that the universe itself began to rearrange around it? This is not about control or force. It's not about shouting your desires into the cosmos. It's about alignment. True alignment is quiet but powerful. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are in harmony, you emit a frequency that speaks louder than words, louder than effort. The universe doesn't need to keep sending you hints when your vibration already carries the message. At that point, life doesn't trickle in as occasional synchronicities. It flows as a continuous stream of resonance. I've seen this in my own life, and maybe you have too. There were times when I was so deeply aligned with love or gratitude that I didn't need signs to know I was on the right path. I felt it in my bones. On those days, opportunities seemed to appear effortlessly. Conversations unfolded with ease. The right people crossed my path without me having to chase them. It wasn't that the universe was suddenly giving me more than before. It was that I had become more coherent. My inner world was no longer fragmented, so my outer world no longer needed to reflect fragmentation. Synchronicity shifted from being a rare event to a natural flow, like a heartbeat. The extraordinary became ordinary, and in that ordinariness, I found peace. This doesn't mean challenges disappear. Life will still bring storms, because storms are part of growth. But when you are the signal, even the storms have a rhythm. You navigate them with a quiet strength, because you no longer feel like a leaf tossed around by the wind. You are the tree rooted, steady, unshaken. Becoming the signal isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. It's about living so fully in alignment with your inner truth that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. So how do you begin? You begin by embodying the energy you seek. If you long for peace, ask yourself, how can I bring peace to this moment? Right here, right now. If you desire abundance, notice where abundance already exists in the breath you take. The sunlight warming your skin, the laughter of someone you love. If you yearn for love, speak to yourself with kindness. Even when no one else is listening, each choice, no matter how small, is a signal you are sending out. And those signals compound, weaving together into a coherent vibration that shapes your reality. There's a beautiful paradox in this process. When you stop chasing signs, They begin to appear more often, not because you need them, but because you've released the attachment to them. They are no longer breadcrumbs leading you somewhere. They are simply reflections of the harmony you already embody. At this stage, you don't ask, is this a sign you live as if every breath, every step, every interaction is a sign, because it is. Your entire life becomes the message. The separation between you and the universe dissolves, and you realize you were never waiting for guidance. You were the guidance all along. Neville Goddard's words ring truer to me now than ever before. Live as though you are already the person you wish to become. It's not a trick of the mind or a game of pretending. It's the deepest form of truth you can live. Because when you embody the energy of your desired reality, you collapse the distance between where you are and where you want to be. Synchronicity will still happen, but it won't be the point anymore. You won't need signs to know you're aligned, because your life itself will be the evidence. You will be the living, breathing proof. When you become the signal, there is a profound sense of freedom. You stop chasing, grasping, waiting. You stop needing the universe to send you reassurance. Instead, you radiate so clearly that the universe simply mirrors you. At that point, synchronicity isn't a whisper or a nudge. It's the natural flow of a reality that you are actively co-creating with every breath you take. And that is the quiet power of becoming the signal. You no longer search for magic outside of you, because you realize you are the magic. 5. Synchronicity is the dance between mind and universe. There's a quiet mystery woven into the very fabric of life, a truth that has been whispered by mystics for centuries. And now, finally, science is beginning to glimpse it too. It's this: you are not separate from the universe. You are in constant dialogue with it. In quantum physics, there is something known as the observer effect. It shows us that simply by observing, by focusing our awareness on something, we can influence what becomes real. Tiny particles, too small to see with the naked eye, behave differently depending on whether they are being watched. This isn't a metaphor, it's measurable, repeatable, indéniable. When I first learned about this, I felt a strange mix of awe and recognition. It was as if modern science had finally found words for what ancient teachings had always known. Consciousness is not passive. Your thoughts, your feelings, your presence are not just internal experiences. They ripple outward, interacting with the field of possibility that surrounds us all. Synchronicity is one of the most beautiful expressions of this dance between mind and universe. It's what happens when your inner frequency aligns so precisely with the outer field that the two begin to move as one. Like two musical instruments tuning to the same note, your personal energy and the energy of life itself begin to resonate together. And when that happens, you witness what we call meaningful coincidences. You think of a friend you haven't seen in years, and moments later, they call you. You take a detour on your way home and stumble across the exact opportunity you've been hoping for. You keep seeing the same number at exactly the right time, almost as if reality is tapping you on the shoulder, saying, "Yes, keep going." To an outside observer, these moments might seem random, even silly, but inside, you know they're not random at all. You feel the harmony, the way a musician feels when the right note vibrates through their instrument. There is a kind of deep recognition, a whisper that says, "This is no accident. This is alignment." For much of my life, I believed that life was happening to me. I thought I was separate, a small being navigating a vast and indifferent universe. But synchronicity changed that belief forever. The first time I experienced a string of powerful synchronicities, I felt like the universe was reaching out to me, trying to get my attention. At first, I was amazed. Then, I became addicted. I chased the signs, desperate for more proof that I was being guided. But eventually, through many cycles of clarity and confusion, I began to understand something deeper Synchronicity wasn't just the universe talking to me. It was the echo of my own consciousness blending with the larger field. It wasn't a one-way conversation. It was a dance, a two-way flow of energy, where my inner state and the outer world were reflections of one another. Think of it like this. Imagine standing on the edge of a still lake. If you throw a stone into the water, ripples spread outward, touching everything on the surface. Now imagine that the lake is alive. When you step back and listen, the lake begins to send ripples back toward you. The two of you are in constant exchange, shaping each other, influencing each other, creating patterns that neither could create alone. Your mind is like that stone. Your awareness is the point of contact that sends ripples into the universal field. When those ripples match the natural rhythm of life, synchronicity emerges. It is the pattern created where your inner world and outer world meet. There is a quiet responsibility in this, because if your thoughts and feelings are in chaos, the ripples you send are fragmented. The world reflects back confusion, mixed signals, and resistance. But when you cultivate coherence, when your thoughts, emotions, and actions align, the ripples become smooth, harmonious. The universe responds, not with chaos, but with clarity. This is why practices like meditation, journaling, and mindful breathing matter. They are not just ways to calm yourself. They are ways to tune yourself, like an instrument before a concert. When you are tuned, the music of life plays through you effortlessly, and synchronicity becomes the song. You hear a melody that reminds you that you and the universe are playing together, not separately. There was a period in my life when I felt completely out of tune. I was overwhelmed, disconnected, always rushing, always grasping, and the signs I saw reflected that. Opportunities slipped through my fingers at the last moment. Relationships felt strained and confusing. Even the synchronicities I did notice seemed fragmented, almost mocking, like random noise, instead of meaningful harmony. It wasn't until I began to slow down and care for my inner world that things started to shift. I didn't force the universe to send me better signs. I simply became a clearer signal, and as I did, life began to mirror that clarity back to me. The synchronicities that appeared were no longer chaotic. They were precise, undeniable, and deeply supportive. The beauty of this understanding is that it removes both blame and helplessness. When synchronicity appears, you don't have to wonder if some external power has decided to favor you today. And when life feels silent or disjointed, you don't have to spiral into fear that you've been abandoned. Instead, you can remember, this is a dance. Sometimes you lead. Sometimes the universe leads. Sometimes the music swells with obvious signs. Other times, the room goes quiet so you can feel your own rhythm again. The key is to keep showing up on the dance floor, to keep tuning your inner instrument so that when the outer field is ready, you can move together in harmony once more. Synchronicity is not magic in the sense of tricks or illusions. It is the natural outcome of resonance. When your mind and heart are aligned, you begin to notice how deeply life responds to you. And in those moments, you remember not as an idea, but as a lived truth that you were never separate from the whole. You are the note and the song, the dancer and the dance, the ripple and the lake, and every synchronicity you witness is simply life whispering, you and I are one. Keep playing, keep listening. 6. Ask the right question. When synchronicity shows up in our lives, it often arrives like a whisper from the universe. You glance at the clock and see the same numbers repeating 1111, 2, and your heart skips a beat. A stranger speaks words that echo the very thoughts you've been holding silently inside. An opportunity appears just as you were beginning to lose hope. In these moments, most of us instinctively reach outward. We search for meaning in the signs themselves, trying to decode them like secret messages. We ask questions such as, What does this mean? What am I supposed to do next? It's a very human response, born from our desire to feel safe and guided. But over time, I've learned that these are not the most powerful questions we can ask. They may bring temporary comfort, but they keep our focus on the external, on chasing clues rather than embodying truth. The deeper, more transformative question is this: what within me created this synchronicity? When you ask this question, something subtle, yet profound shifts. Instead of seeing synchronicity as a cosmic instruction manual, you begin to recognize it for what it truly is: a mirror. The sign itself doesn't tell you whether to go left or right, say yes or no, stay or leave. It reflects the state of being you are currently radiating. It shows you where your inner frequency and the outer field are intersecting. It's less like a roadmap and more like a reflection in still water, giving you the chance to see yourself clearly. If you're willing to look. I remember a time when I was faced with a big decision about my life's direction. I felt confused, unsure of which path to take. During that period, synchronicity seemed to explode around me. I kept seeing the same symbols, hearing the same words from different people, noticing patterns that felt too precise to ignore. At first, I thought these were direct instructions from the universe. I sat for hours trying to interpret them, obsessing over whether they were telling me to choose one option over another. But the more I analyzed, the more anxious I became. No matter how many signs appeared, I didn't feel any clearer. It wasn't until I turned inward that I began to understand. The signs weren't about the external choice at all. They were about me. They were showing me the energy I was carrying, my fears, my hopes, my longing for certainty. When I shifted my focus from, what should I do, to, what is this showing me about who I am being right now, everything softened. The decision didn't magically become easy, but my relationship to it changed. Instead of chasing answers, I started to align my inner world, knowing that the outer world would naturally follow. It's like standing in front of a mirror. If you don't like the reflection you see, you don't reach into the glass to rearrange your hair or change your clothes. You change yourself, and the reflection changes automatically. Synchronicity works the same way. It's not about manipulating the external circumstances. It's about becoming aware of the internal patterns that are being mirrored back to you. When you experience a beautiful synchronicity, a perfectly timed event, a moment of unexpected grace, ask yourself, what part of me is ready to be seen? What state of being has called this into form? And when you encounter synchronicity that feels unsettling or confusing, don't panic. Instead, ask, what within me is seeking harmony? What is being brought into my awareness so I can heal or integrate it? This way of relating to synchronicity brings a sense of empowerment. No longer are you at the mercy of random signs or external forces. You become an active participant in the dance between your inner and outer worlds. You realize that every synchronicity, whether uplifting or challenging, is ultimately an invitation to deeper self-awareness. Imagine walking through a forest at night with a lantern. The light only shows a small patch of ground in front of you, while the rest of the path remains hidden. The signs you see along the way are like reflections in that lantern's glow. They don't reveal the entire forest, but they show you enough to take the next step with presence and trust. If you focus only on the shapes outside the light, you'll feel lost and disoriented. But if you stay aware of how you're holding the lantern, how steady or shaky your hand is, how brightly or dimly the flame burns, you begin to understand that your experience of the forest depends as much on your own state as it does on the terrain itself. This is what it means to ask the right question. You stop trying to control the forest, and you start tending to your own flame. Asking, what within me created this, does not mean blaming yourself for everything that happens. Life is complex, and there are countless factors beyond our control. But this question shifts your attention to the one place where you do have power, your inner alignment. It reminds you that even when you cannot choose every event, you can choose how you meet each moment. You can choose the vibration you bring to it. And that choice ripples outward in ways you may never fully see, shaping the synchronicities that arise in your path. Over time, this practice becomes a kind of inner compass. When synchronicities appear, you no longer feel the frantic need to decode them. You simply notice them, turn inward, and listen. The sign says, "Look here," and here is always your own heart. From this space, you move through life with more grace. You stop chasing signs and start embodying the energy you want reflected back to you. And as you do, synchronicity becomes less about mystery and more about relationship, a living dialogue between who you are and the vast intelligence that holds it all. The next time you witness a synchronicity, pause, breathe deeply. Before you rush to interpret or act, ask yourself the deeper question: what is this showing me about my current state of being? Because ultimately, synchronicity isn't telling you what to do. It's reminding you who you are. And when you remember that, the path ahead reveals itself not as a set of instructions, but as a reflection of your own inner truth. 7. The power of inner coherence. There's a quiet strength that comes when every part of you is moving in the same direction. It's not the kind of strength that shouts or forces its way forward. It's steady, clear, like a river flowing smoothly, guided effortlessly by the shape of the land. Most of us don't live in this state very often. We are taught to value thinking, but not feeling, to act, but not always with awareness. And so, we become divided within ourselves. Our minds pull us one way, our hearts another, while our actions try to keep up with the demands of the outside world. This inner division creates noise. It's like trying to listen to a beautiful song on a radio filled with static. You can almost hear the melody, but it's broken, scattered, hard to follow. When you are fragmented in this way, the signs life sends, you will reflect that same confusion. Synchronicities will feel random, inconsistent, even meaningless. You might glimpse a moment of clarity, only for it to be followed by more uncertainty. But when your thoughts, emotions, and actions align, something extraordinary happens. The static fades, the melody becomes clear, and the universe begins to respond to you with the same clarity you are radiating. I've experienced this in my own life many times. There was a period when I was working hard to create change in my relationships, my career, even in my spiritual practice. On the surface, it looked like I was doing everything right. But inside, I was divided. Part of me believed in possibility, while another part was bracing for disappointment. My mind was filled with affirmations of hope, but my body carried the tension of old fears. And my actions were scattered, some driven by trust, others by desperation. The synchronicities I saw during that time mirrored my inner state perfectly. One day, a powerful sign would appear, and I'd feel a rush of certainty that I was on the right path. The next day, everything would feel flat, confusing, disconnected. It was as if the universe itself couldn't decide what story it was telling me. But really, it was me who was unclear. The outer world was simply reflecting the inner conflict I hadn't yet resolved. Coherence is what happens when you bring all parts of yourself into harmony. It's not about perfection. It's about honesty and alignment. It's when your mind says yes, your heart feels yes, and your actions follow through on that yes, all moving together in a single, unified direction. When you reach this state, your energy becomes incredibly powerful, not in the way of force or control, but in the way a tuning fork resonates with absolute precision. Your signal to the universe becomes unmistakable. In this state, synchronicities no longer feel like rare, mysterious gifts. They appear with precision and grace. Like a well-timed dance, life feels as though it is conspiring with you rather than against you. The right people arrive at the perfect moment. Doors open smoothly, without struggle, Even challenges seem purposeful, like stepping stones, placed exactly where they need to be. Think of it like a symphony. Imagine each part of yourself as an instrument. Your thoughts are the violins. Your emotions are the cellos. Your actions are the drums keeping rhythm. When each plays its own separate tune, the result is chaos. It's loud, messy, and exhausting. But when they all tune to the same key, when they play the same song, what emerges is breathtaking. The music carries you. It moves not only you, but everyone who hears it. This is what coherence feels like. It's not something you can fake. It arises naturally when you bring attention and care to each part of your being. So how do we cultivate this inner unity? It begins with listening. Most of us live in our heads, trying to think our way through life. But coherence requires that you also listen to your body, to your emotions, to the subtle signals that rise from deeper within you. Sometimes your body knows the truth long before your mind catches up. Sometimes your heart whispers what you most need to hear. If only you are willing to be still and listen. When you notice a gap between what you think, what you feel, and what you do, don't judge yourself. Instead, be curious. Ask gently, what part of me is out of tune? What part of me needs attention, compassion, or healing? By bringing awareness to these places, you begin to align them. Meditation, journaling, breath work. These practices are not about escaping life. They are ways of tuning your inner instruments so they can play together in harmony. There's a profound connection between coherence and synchronicity. When you are divided inside, synchronicities feel erratic, like puzzle pieces that don't fit. But when you are coherent, synchronicities flow smoothly, each one a perfect note in the song of your life. I've seen this in the simplest ways. On days when I am scattered, rushing, doubting myself, the world feels heavy. I miss important moments. I overlook opportunities. Even when signs appear, they seem vague or confusing. But on days when I am present and aligned, the world responds differently. I notice small miracles, a chance meeting that leads to a breakthrough, a phrase overheard at exactly the right time, a door opening just as I arrive. These are not accidents. They are the natural reflection of my inner state. The beauty of coherence is that it doesn't require the world to change first. You don't have to wait for the right conditions or perfect timing. You create harmony within yourself, and the outer world naturally begins to match it. When you live from this place, synchronicity is no longer something you chase. It becomes the natural byproduct of your alignment. The universe no longer has to send you mixed signals because you are sending out a clear, consistent vibration. Here's the most liberating truth. The magic you seek is not in the signs themselves. It's in the clarity you bring to your own being. When your mind, heart, and actions move as one, you don't just witness synchronicity, you embody it. Your entire life becomes a living expression of connection and flow, and from this place, you begin to understand. The real miracle is not the perfect timing of outer events, but the profound harmony of a soul that has come home to itself. 8. Silence is not the end, but the gathering point. There comes a moment on every journey when the signs fade away. The repeating numbers vanish. The meaningful coincidences that once lit up your path suddenly stop appearing. The world feels quiet, too quiet. And in that silence, doubt begins to creep in. You wonder, did I lose my way? Have I done something wrong? Was the magic I felt before just my imagination? It's easy to mistake this stillness for abandonment, to believe that the universe has somehow withdrawn its support. I know this feeling deeply because I've walked through it more than once. But with time, I've learned something profound. Silence is not the end of your journey. It is not a punishment or a void. Silence is the gathering point, the moment when all the scattered pieces of your energy come together. preparing for something far greater than you can currently see. Think of a bow being drawn back before an arrow is released. To the casual observer, it might seem like nothing is happening in that moment of stillness. The arrow isn't flying. There's no visible motion, but inside the bow, immense energy is building. The tension is deliberate, purposeful. Then, in a single breath, that energy is released, propelling the arrow forward with incredible force. The pause was never wasted time. It was the essential preparation for the leap. Your life works the same way. When the signs go quiet and synchronicities seem to disappear, it often means that your energy is being gathered, focused, and aligned. The silence is not a loss of connection. It is the space where a new reality is quietly forming beneath the surface. I remember a season in my own life when everything felt strangely still. For months before that, I had been surrounded by synchronicities. Doors opened effortlessly. The right people appeared at the perfect time. I felt carried by a flow so graceful that I didn't have to question it. And then, nothing. It was as if the lights had been turned off. The path ahead felt invisible, and I could no longer sense the guidance I'd grown so used to. At first, I panicked. I thought maybe I had fallen out of alignment, or somehow failed the test the universe had given me. But as the weeks passed, I began to notice something subtle. Beneath the stillness, there was a quiet hum, an energy I couldn't quite name, like the deep vibration of the earth before a storm. Slowly, I began to realize that this silence wasn't empty. It was full of potential, full of unseen movement. Something was gathering. It wasn't visible yet, but it was very real. Nature mirrors this truth perfectly. Think of the winter months when the ground appears lifeless, the trees bare and cold. To the untrained eye, it might seem like everything is dead, but under the frozen soil, seeds are germinating. Roots are growing stronger. Life is preparing for the explosion of spring. The silence of winter is not death. It is concentration. It is the invisible work required for visible transformation. Your own periods of stillness are like this. When life feels quiet and motionless, it may be because everything is aligning for a breakthrough you cannot yet imagine. The pause is not separate from the leap, it is part of it. The challenge, of course, is that silence can feel unbearable. We live in a world that celebrates constant movement, instant answers, immediate signs. So when nothing seems to be happening, our minds rush to fill the space with fear. We tell ourselves stories. I've been abandoned. I'm going backwards. I've lost my connection. But none of these are true. Silence is not a sign of failure. It is a sacred pause, a moment of gathering before the release. Patience becomes your greatest ally in these times. It takes courage to sit with the unknown, to resist the urge to force clarity. It takes trust to believe that just because you cannot see progress doesn't mean progress isn't being made. Imagine standing in a dark theater just before the curtain rises. The audience is silent. The stage is hidden, but behind that curtain, an entire world is being prepared. Scenery is being shifted. Actors are taking their places. Lights are being adjusted. And then, in a single moment, the curtain lifts, and what was once invisible becomes undeniable. Your life is like that theater. The silence you feel now is the preparation for the scene that is about to unfold. This understanding has changed the way I move through quiet seasons. Instead of grasping for signs or blaming myself for their absence, I focus on my own alignment. I ask myself gentle questions. What energy am I holding right now? How can I nurture myself while I wait? I tend to my inner world the way a gardener tends to the soil in winter, knowing that even if I cannot see growth, it is happening beneath the surface. I meditate. I breathe. I rest. I remind myself that the bow is being drawn back, and when the time comes, the release will be swift and powerful. And then, almost without warning, The shift arrives. The signs return. But they are different now, clearer, more potent. Opportunities appear with a sense of inevitability, as if they were always meant to be there. The new reality doesn't trickle in slowly. It bursts forth, like an arrow flying toward its target, like spring exploding into bloom after a long winter. In those moments, and you understand why the silence was necessary. Without it, there would be no momentum, no precision, no grazie. So if you find yourself in a season of stillness, hold this truth close to your heart. Silence is not the end. It is the gathering point. It is the invisible drawing back of the bow, the preparation for the leap you are about to take. Be patient. Be gentle with yourself. Trust the process, even when you cannot see it. Because one day, the energy you've been building will be released in a way that feels effortless and undeniable. And you'll realize that what you thought was emptiness was actually the deepest form of creation, the moment when everything was quietly coming together, just for you. 9. Let synchronicity become a natural breath. For many people, synchronicity feels like a rare, magical event, a special moment they hold close, like a secret blessing. It's the unexpected phone call from someone they were just thinking about, the song on the radio that plays the exact words they needed to hear, the sudden opportunity that feels almost too perfectly timed to be chance. In the beginning, these moments feel extraordinary, and they are. They remind us that life is far more mysterious and interconnected than our logical minds can comprehend. But if we're not careful, we begin to treat synchronicity as something scarce, like a fleeting miracle we have to chase or capture. We start looking for signs everywhere, scanning the horizon for proof that we are supported, that we are on the right path. The truth I've come to understand, through my own years of searching and stumbling, is far simpler and far more beautiful. Synchronicity is not meant to be an occasional spark. When you live in deep connection, synchronicity becomes a steady rhythm, like the inhale and exhale of your breath, like the beat of your heart. It stops being something you hunt for, and instead becomes the natural background music of your life. When you breathe, you don't sit there wondering if the next breath will come. You don't analyze every inhale, questioning whether you're breathing correctly or whether you've earned the right to take another breath. Breathing just happens. It flows effortlessly because it is part of you. Synchronicity, when fully embodied, works the same way. It's not something you manufacture with effort or strain. It's a natural byproduct of alignment, the outer world reflecting the inner harmony you have cultivated within yourself. At this point, you no longer need to chase signs. Your entire life becomes a sign. I used to live in a constant state of seeking. I was always looking for the next clue, the next confirmation, the next piece of evidence that I was on the right track. Every time a synchronicity appeared, I would feel a rush of excitement, followed by a sharp drop into fear when the signs seemed to fade. It was exhausting, like holding my breath, waiting for the universe to speak again. I didn't realize at the time that I was creating this very tension by clinging so tightly to the signs themselves. Over time, through many cycles of grasping and letting go, I began to see a different way. The key was not to chase synchronicity, but to live from the state that naturally generates it. Instead of running after the signs, I learned to tend to my inner world, my thoughts, my emotions, my actions, until they moved together with integrity and coherence. When I did this, something shifted. Synchronicity stopped being rare. It began to flow continuously, like a quiet, steady stream. Some moments were dramatic and unmistakable, while others were so subtle, I almost missed them. But together, they created a seamless rhythm, a living conversation between me and the universe. This is what it means to let synchronicity become your natural breath. You no longer wake up each day wondering, will there be a sign for me today? You wake up knowing that your entire life, every meeting, every challenge, every act of love or loss, is part of the guidance you are receiving. Even ordinary moments become extraordinary because you are present enough to see them for what they are, reflections of your own state of being. The look in a stranger's eyes, the way the wind moves through the trees at just the right moment, the pause in a conversation that allows for truth to emerge. When you are deeply connected, nothing is random anymore. Everything carries meaning, not in a heavy, overwhelming way, but in a soft, supportive way, like a hand on your shoulder saying, "I'm here. Keep going." It's important to understand that living this way doesn't mean life becomes perfect or free of challenges. Storms will still come. Loss will still visit. But even in those moments, there is a rhythm beneath the chaos. Just as your heartbeat continues through joy and through sorrow, synchronicity continues through the highs and lows of life. When you trust this rhythm, you stop grasping for control. You don't need to force outcomes or demand answers. You move through life with a kind of quiet confidence, knowing that every step, even the ones that feel uncertain, is part of a larger harmony. Imagine walking through a forest. At first, you might be hyper-aware of every sound, every path, unsure of where to step, but after a while, you begin to relax. Your senses attune to the natural rhythm around you, the rustle of leaves, the call of birds, the crunch of earth beneath your feet. You no longer need to think about where you're going with every step. You simply walk, trusting the forest to hold you. This is how life feels when synchronicity becomes natural. You are no longer separate from the flow. You are the flow. The guidance you once sought outside yourself is now woven into every breath you take. To reach this state, patience and presence are essential. It doesn't happen overnight. At first, there may still be moments of doubt, times when you long for a dramatic sign to reassure you. That's okay. Just as a baby learning to walk stumbles and falls, you will wobble as you learn to trust this new way of being. The key is to keep returning to yourself. Instead of asking, "Where are the signs?" ask, "Am I present? Am I aligned? Am I breathing with life? Or am I holding my breath in fear?" Each time you return to the present moment, you strengthen your connection to the rhythm of synchronicity. And over time, this connection becomes unshakable. The beauty of this way of living is its simplicity. You no longer need to dissect or analyze every coincidence. You no longer need to cling to signs like lifeboats. You simply live, breathe, and trust, knowing that life is always communicating with you in ways both subtle and profound. Synchronicity stops being something outside of you and becomes something within you. It is not an occasional event to celebrate, but a natural expression of your wholeness. And in that realization, you find freedom, because you no longer have to search for proof that you are on the right path. Your life itself becomes the proof. Every moment is a sign. Every breath is a conversation. And you, simply by being here, are the miracle you were always looking for. You are the source of the signs. Synchronicity has never been a game of random luck. It has never been the universe playing tricks on you or dangling mysterious clues in front of you just to keep you guessing. From the very beginning, every sign you've ever received has been an echo, the echo of your own thoughts, emotions, and energy, rippling outward and returning to you. It's like standing in a vast canyon and shouting into the open space. What comes back to you isn't the voice of some stranger. It's your own voice, mirrored and amplified by the landscape. Life works the same way. The outer world reflects the inner, faithfully and without judgment. When you begin to truly understand this, everything changes. You stop chasing synchronicity like a scavenger hunt. You stop grasping for meaning in every little coincidence. Instead, you begin to turn inward, realizing that the signs are not separate from you. They are you, the physical, tangible reflection of your inner vibration. For so long, many of us have been taught to wait. We wait for permission. We wait for clarity. We wait for the universe to give us a signal that it's safe to take the next step. And while waiting can sometimes be wise, there comes a point when waiting becomes a cage. When you live only for the signs outside of you, you give your power away. You tell yourself that the answers are out there, in some mysterious place beyond your reach. But the truth is far simpler, far more intimate. You are the origin of every sign you've ever received. The universe is not a distant force deciding whether or not to favor you today. It is a mirror, reflecting back the frequency you broadcast moment to moment. When you radiate fear, it shows you more fear. When you radiate love, it surrounds you with love. When you radiate clarity and purpose, synchronicities appear like stepping stones laid perfectly before you. Not because you were chosen, but because you finally became aligned. There comes a sacred moment in every journey when you stop waiting for the next sign and realize that you are the sign. You are the living proof that consciousness creates reality. You are the bridge between thought and manifestation, between energy and form. This moment is not loud or dramatic. It often arrives quietly, like a deep breath after a long, restless night. It's the moment you look around and think, I don't need the universe to convince me anymore. I know who I am. I know what I'm creating. From this place, synchronicity stops being a rare event and becomes a natural flow, as natural as your heartbeat, as constant as your breath. The outer world no longer has to shout to get your attention because you are already listening. The signs don't need to knock on your door because you are already living in harmony with what they were trying to show you. I remember a time when I was endlessly searching for reassurance. Every day, I would scan for signs, desperate for confirmation that I was on the right path. And sometimes the signs came, filling me with joy and hope. But other times, they were silent. And in that silence, my fear would return. It was a cycle of highs and lows, always dependent on what I saw outside of me. Until one day, in the midst of that silence, I realized something simple and life-changing. The signal I was waiting for was already within me. I didn't need the outer world to show me what I was ready to claim. I needed to declare it for myself. The moment I did, the moment I inwardly said, I am the signal, everything shifted. It wasn't that the universe suddenly started working differently. It was that I began to embody the truth that had always been there. My inner state was the source, and the outer world was the reflection. When you reach this understanding, a beautiful kind of freedom emerges. You stop needing life to constantly reassure you. You no longer cling to synchronicity as proof that you are loved or guided. Because you feel that love and guidance within yourself, you begin to live from a place of quiet confidence, knowing that every moment, whether filled with signs or silence, is part of a greater dance that you are co-creating. And as you radiate this inner certainty, the outer world responds in kind. Synchronicities don't disappear, they simply shift. They become so seamless, so integrated into your daily life, that they no longer feel separate from you. They are no longer whispers from the universe. They are the rhythm of your existence. The truth is, you were never meant to be a passive observer, waiting for life to tell you who you are or what to do. You were never meant to live in fear of missing a sign or making the wrong move. You are not the spectator of this reality. You are the creator. You are the one sending out the signal that shapes everything you experience. Synchronicity doesn't come to convince you to believe. It comes to help you remember what you already know, that you are powerful, that you are connected, that you are the very source of the magic you've been seeking. So take a moment now to breathe deeply. Feel the steady rhythm of your heart. Recognize that this same rhythm flows through the entire universe, through the trees, the oceans, the stars. You are not separate from it. You are part of the same living field. And when you remember this, you no longer need to look outside yourself for proof. You become the proof. You become the sign. You become the signal that guides not only your own path, but also ripples outward. touching every life you encounter. From this place, life is no longer a puzzle to solve. It is a masterpiece to experience, moment by moment, breath by breath. Synchronicity has always been your own reflection. The day you stop waiting for signs and start radiating your truth is the day you fully understand. The universe isn't sending you signals, the universe is showing you yourself. And when you live from this truth, there is nothing left to chase, nothing left to decode. There is only the profound simplicity of knowing that you are and have always been the creator of your own reality.